So obviously how we run quality online training sessions that increase sales. So yeah, as Laura mentioned, I'm Hugh from Valto. As a company, we specialize in Microsoft 365 technology. So we do lots of stuff around Microsoft Teams, SharePoint. Basically, a lot of the way we work is we used to do workshops on site with people. Obviously now a lot of things have changed, so it's not as easy now to go on site and work and sit down with people. It's not as easy to get traditional sales through. So we've done events before, but we've really stepped up a gear in terms of offering people much more events and trying to convert those into sales. And it's not just about sales, there's a lot of other benefits as we go through that will help with that. So kind of the agenda, the benefits of online events, thinking of events that are topical, how we market events, the tools that we use that help us with the events while we're running them, how we come up with event content, so what we're actually putting in those events, some ideas around how we run events and some tips and tricks around that. Call to action. So we want to run these events. Most of the time they're free. So we need a way at the end to do a call to action to try and get people then to engage with us. What we do as an event follow-up, and then we've got questions and answers at the end for people. So what we'd like to get for people, what with webinar takeaways, why you guys should run events, how to identify and market events, tools, useful content, event follow-ups and call to actions, and how we can convert events into sales. So what are the benefits of online events? So effectively, there's a few different events. So obviously what we would like to get from doing an online event is to try and basically convert those into sales and new customers. But they're not really the primary reason that we do them. Obviously we get people to come through, but there's a lot of other benefits that you get from running an event. So the first one is around brand. If you guys are pushing out lots of useful tips and tricks, like we're doing a lot around Microsoft Teams and Microsoft 365 now, you kind of become the go-to person in that area. So while you're investing your time and effort and you're not charging anything for that, people are going to recognize your company as, they're doing Microsoft Teams services, they're doing Microsoft things, they're the kind of guys that we can go to. So we see that the events are not just a way of generating revenue, but they're also a way of building up our brand, our reputation, and they help them with recognition. So if customers aren't potentially in a buying mood at the moment, a lot of people are being cautious with the current environment, so they're not looking to spend a lot of money at the moment. But when this all calms down and we go back to normal, people will be thinking, Teams, we need to move forward with that. These are the guys, they've helped us a lot through this process, and those events then will lead to sales in the longer term. An event also provides us reusable materials. So while we're running an event, it's not really just about the live, the now. We always think of it as the stuff that we can generate on the back of it. So we're creating videos that people can have. We'll have a downloadable video, a webinar that people can go to. We've got a YouTube channel, which we're starting to build subscribers. We're getting a lot of people looking at that and finding content on there. We use the materials as we create the presentations as we could use this for our proposals. So everything we do around an event, it's not just the event, we're trying to think of how can this be useful for us moving forward. So it's the materials we generate, it's the videos. And the last piece around that is learning skills. So quite often if I'm not sure of a certain subject and I want to learn more and I want to try and help people around that, I take this as an online event. Perhaps we could run something on how we could run whiteboarding in Microsoft Teams. That's something that we don't have a huge amount of skill in at the moment. But if we were to do a webinar and we go in and dive into that, we're learning that skill and then we're generating useful content that people can have afterwards. So those are kind of the benefits of online events. It's not just about the sales and new customers, although they're nice. It's about building the brand, the recognition, and trying to generate a load of reusable materials. So once the event's done, when people start to search for Power Apps or Microsoft 365 or whatever we're running the event on, we're then coming up in the search engine and people are finding us for those areas. So the next kind of slide is basically how do we think of an event that is topical and useful? So we can run an event all the time on just things like Microsoft 365 and Power Apps and Teams. But what we really want to do is we want to try and think of something that's topical, that's going to get people involved and interested in what's happening. So as an example, we've been running a lot of events recently around COVID-19. So we're not really just pushing out hundreds of events saying COVID-19, COVID-19, that. What we're basically doing is we're trying to put our people in, feet in the shoes of the people that are going to be having issues and stuff now. So as an example, one of the most popular events that we've run recently is converting your departments to a remote way of working. So it's not specifically around COVID-19, but there's a lot of people currently that are thinking, right, I've got departments, I need to change this way of working. How are we going to adapt and how are we going to change? So if you can think of a catchy event that's topical that people are thinking about, then people are going to start then thinking, I need to join this. This is something that we're going to be interested in. Another event that we've done is a virtual office with Microsoft Teams. So it's just all really thinking about, right, there's a current event going on like COVID-19. How can we use that event that people are going to be interested in, and how can I apply that? I'm sure our events wouldn't have been as popular if I just called it Microsoft Teams overview, but because it was very much targeted on how can you get remote departments working, that was a very, very successful event where we got a few hundred people able to join that one. So just other times where you've had a topical event. So Zoom, obviously there's a security breach with Zoom. We've created a YouTube video which will show, but the Zoom is a current topic where we could start to publish Teams versus Zoom. So everyone's going to be looking on the internet at the moment for Teams versus Zoom and which one's best. We actually did a YouTube video. We didn't do this one as an event, but we were able to get 10,000 views on a Zoom versus Teams video just because it's so topical. So I'd say just think about current events and try and adapt your event and your specialism to what's topical at the time, and that'll really drive how many people join and come on to this. So just other examples of where things can be topical. If there's been a new offer or feature in your market, so for us, there's been changes to licenses, there's been free E1 licenses. So when we're thinking about running a new event, we would think about incorporating those into the title, so they're hooking people to think that they would be interested in these. And then, of course, your event would be around your product specialism. So ours is Microsoft, we're adapting the topics around that. But if you can adapt what your specialism is into those topical events, that will really drive people then to coming into that event. So marketing the event, we've got kind of a few different channels that we use for around this. So the first one is LinkedIn. That's really a fantastic resource for us. Everything we do, we post onto LinkedIn as a thread. And we use our employees as well. So our employees, when we post up a new event on LinkedIn, we're then getting them to like and share that. So we're trying to get the reach out as much as we humanly can for an event when we do it. Within an event, I'll just jump into our Valto thread, just bear with me. We have the ability to do various types of tags in here as well. So if we use a tag on LinkedIn, like remote productivity, LinkedIn have been doing a big thread on that on the homepage around remote productivity. So if we start to use these tags, that they then start to show up in people's feeds, and we can start to then drive a lot of people into those. Alongside sort of marketing our event, we publish a lot of other useful related information. So we're not just pushing our event, we're just trying to be as useful and topical to people at the moment. So while we've been doing this remote working event, we've been posting useful links from Microsoft, various videos that we've created. We're just trying to drive a lot of people to our webpage so that when we do post the video, we get a lot of uptake and a lot of signups then. The next thing I'd recommend around marketing the event is partnerships. So we partner with a lot of IT companies. We help them with kind of the specialisms that we do is SharePoint and stuff. So we find that partnering with those companies, rather than having it branded solely as Valto and doing it as an event that way, we've been reaching out to our partners and saying, we're running this event on mapping departments remotely. Would you be willing to join, and could we advertise that? So what we then find is we're getting the reach of their partners and their customers are joining our event. And rather than running the same event 2 or 3 times with different branding, people are generally much more open to a partnership, and we can get much more reach and much more people on there as well. Eventbrite is a really good tool. So I'm always surprised that when we run events, how many people actually join from Eventbrite. So when we come into the events just on here and we go into an event like this one, if within the Eventbrite, if you've got a catchy name, so this comes back to making your event topical and making it worthwhile. But what we can do, you can see here, direct traffic, 391 views, but also the event discovery platform is pulling in quite a fair bit of views as well. So it's, if you can use the tags correctly in Eventbrite, and you can get a decent snappy name, you'll find that you get a lot of take up and people coming in from Eventbrite directly as well. So we find that works really well. The other thing is existing customers. So obviously market your events to your existing customers. We can use MailChimp to do that. But another thing that we find that works really, really well is we have a few different sort of hooks on our web page. So as an example of what I mean by a hook, we've developed over time a Microsoft Teams governance plan white paper. So basically this is a white paper we created for Microsoft Teams, and all we do is gather their name and their email address. And that continually then provides us a list of people that we know are going to be interested in a Microsoft Teams event. So we've got a huge database of people that are interested in this. So when we then come to do a marketing campaign, we're doing a new event, we've got a mailing list of people that have recently downloaded the Teams governance plan. We're running an event that's around Microsoft Teams, and we can then hook those people straight into the event and away to go. So I think having those different hooks on your website where you've got white papers and blogs and useful things where you're collecting those email addresses really gives you a way then of being able to market back to those and get them to join your event. Another thing we found that works really well is different event names and descriptions, but for the same event. So if we're running an event on Microsoft Teams as an example, there'll be a group of people who are interested in Microsoft Teams, and they're going to join that on the basis that they've heard of Microsoft Teams, they're interested in that event, and they like the topic that's presented. But there'll be a whole host of other people that have never heard of Microsoft Teams, but they're trying to use the same technology. So what we might have is how to use Microsoft Teams to build an effective remote department. That's going to target someone who's heard of Teams and they're interested in it and they want to join that event. But if we also run the same Eventbrite campaign with a different name, so it's all the same event, but it's got a slightly different description, we might say how to get people working effectively remotely using Microsoft technology. So we're just very slightly changing the name, but it's then applicable to different groups of people. One is people that are interested in Teams specifically, but the other group have never heard of Teams and they're interested in solving their challenge. And we want to get both of those people onto the event. We don't want to exclude people and think it's a Teams only event. So we've had very, very good success with driving 2 events with the same name, and ultimately it's the same event, but it's targeted at the way that people would be looking. And then obviously blog posts. So when I mentioned at the beginning, we have different blog posts. We basically create similar materials. So as we start to do a run up to an event, we might run a blog post to try and hook people in as well. So it might be an event on how to use Teams to conduct something specifically. We'll post that and we start to drive some interest in our event then. So that's kind of marketing the event. We've then got tools of the trade. So we've been into Eventbrite. I've kind of showed people how that is. That is basically where we put all of our events. We would go onto the Eventbrite webpage if anyone hasn't used it. But within here, you can very easily create an event up in the top right-hand corner. And one of the really brilliant things about Eventbrite is that they've got a huge database of stuff. So if I search for Microsoft 365, all the events where that's being mentioned are coming up. So people are looking for events. That's our event there actually. And they're finding these events just by going on to Eventbrite. And like I mentioned before, a lot of traffic can be generated from with this. And this will actually integrate nicely with other things. So you can integrate Eventbrite and Facebook together. So it's just another channel. And then the other good thing about Eventbrite is it provides a mechanism to collect people's email addresses and their details. So if we're running an event, really what we want to see on the back of that event is we want people's email addresses, we want to be able to contact them. So with this, you get the tickets sold, and we're able then to go back in and start to market to those people as well. Some other things that I actually like in Eventbrite as well is we've got this invite and promote. So you can add it to Facebook. We can send email invitations out from Eventbrite as well. So if you've got your database of people, you can put those in, and you can just basically send an email to all of your customers on there and test how it works. You can integrate that with MailChimp if you've got that, or another similar system. And another thing that we like to do is within the manage attendees, we've got the ability to schedule and send emails to attendees as well. So this, if you don't have MailChimp or anything set out, you can see here you can send a reminder to people 2 days before the event. You can send one 2 hours before the event. And the one we always do is after the event, we do a bit of marketing to upload the video and stuff. So I think Eventbrite is one of our key tools that we use just because it helps with the registration, and then it helps with us in terms of marketing and follow-ups as well, without having to have loads of other tools. WordPress, I mean, if you've got a website set up, then obviously WordPress is one option, but we have an events section on our web page. So a lot of people who've been joining our events want a central place that they can go to so they can continue to join them. So on our web here, we've just got our upcoming events that people can easily find and join. And that just is a central place to do that. And again, you can get WordPress add-ons that integrate with Eventbrite, so it can all be nice and easy and tied together. So what we're trying to do is just minimize A, the amount of tools we need, and B, the amount of work that's involved to actually get these uploaded. YouTube is another good tool of the trade. So obviously, as I said at the beginning, we want to generate materials on the back of this. So having a YouTube channel where we can start to drive content is a really good way. So we've got kind of a playlist here of the videos that we've been doing, and you can start to then just basically build this up. So when people start searching for Zoom versus Teams, you can see here we've got a lot of people driving into this, 7,015 views at the moment. So by having them on YouTube, once you've done the event, it's not a one-off occasion. It's then the additional marketing and the additional things that come on the back of it. And as Laura's been doing, posting them on LinkedIn, posting them on Facebook, means that we can kind of drive more people to them. Microsoft Teams, obviously we use that for our events, and I'll show you some more around that at the end of this. And as I said, staff are really good if you've got members of staff, and getting them to post on LinkedIn and share the event out as much as possible just drives more recognition for it. Another thing that we like to do, which is called Poll Everywhere. So Poll Everywhere basically is a tool that lets us start to drive and ask people things during an event. So if people are on the event now, you'll see at the very top here, if I get rid of that bar, that you've got this pollev.com Hugh Valentine link. So what that basically does is if you go to that web page, it's a way of integrating polls onto your presentations. So if I just go on to that myself, and you guys could go on to that. Effectively, it could be a yes or no option. It can be a type option. So I can say, what do you think of this way of interacting over the web? And I can post cool. And then that'll start to post in, and it's creating a word cloud in there. So what we find at the moment is when you're doing workshops and training sessions on site with people, they're very interactive. You kind of lose that when you're starting to do them online, especially if it's a really large group. So with having this pollev.com, Poll Everywhere, people are actually able to come onto the website and start to this one's a word cloud that I've set up, but it could be how many people are using Microsoft Teams. You can start to see now that people are starting to put responses in. So this works great. And we can start to get feedback. So this is something we've been using a lot lately to start to get real-time feedback from people. And that's replacing the kind of, can I have a hand in the air of how many people are using Microsoft Teams? There's a little bit involved in it because obviously they have to go to the URL. And we always do have a couple of dummy people just in the background ready to put some responses in, just otherwise if nobody responds, it won't go anywhere. But this is a really good way of interacting with your people while we're doing events. So event content. So this is kind of just how we position the events. I've joined a lot of events and webinars and training sessions in the past where they've just been sales pitches. You've gone on and the company's then telling you, oh, we do Teams and these are the services we offer around Teams. And effectively, it's blatantly a sales pitch to try and get you to buy services. So what we want to do when we do events is we're making them useful for people. We're not trying to get the immediate sell. We're trying to build reputation and brand, and which hopefully leads to a sale. But the content within these, they need to be useful. They need people at the end of the event needs to think, oh, I've taken something away from that. So like our department remote one, we give away advice on how to build materials. We showed people live examples. We went through in a lot of detail. So it's not a sales pitch. It's a real life thing that they can take away. And by the end of the presentation, they'll say that was really useful, and they've got something they can do. It's got to be interactive, so things like the polls. A lot of the demos that I've done, I've flicked into kind of different apps and showed you stuff. Generally, when we do webinars and events, they're very little on PowerPoint, and there are a lot about, here's a live demonstration of Teams, here's a live poll, and it's all about trying to make it interactive so the tools are all real to people. We also try and tell a story that applies to people. So we find this successful. We're running an event soon on how Power Apps can be useful and how that's going to help people replace paper processes. So what we're going to do is we're going to mimic an organization who goes out in the field and they basically inspect drains and stuff. So we're not just we're trying to focus it on a real industry, a real story, so that when people take that away, they're like, that applies to me. So as another example, when we do a Teams demo, we always use the finance department as an overview and a demo of that, because finance are usually the most resistant. They're usually the ones saying, I can't see how this would be useful for my department. So we very specifically use finance as a department because we can use real life examples from them, and we're almost preempting their resistance to say, we don't know how it's going to be useful. So we're then saying month-end expenses, and we're using real examples. So they're like, I can see that, as opposed to just something that's not a real story then. We'd also recommend that the event has resources as well. So making it useful for people, we kind of put useful links on the back of it. So we're trying to then say, right, you can go to these additional links, you can download stuff. And then when they get the presentation at the end, there's some real actions that they can take away and they can progress with. So it's just make the presentation useful for them as well. In terms of running the event, so we've got three areas that we could run events from. Obviously, with us being a Microsoft specialist, we use Microsoft Teams, but also Zoom can do a similar thing as we're doing now. So there's two types of things that we can do in Teams. First of all, there's Teams meetings. So a Teams meeting is really good if we want interaction from people. So if I was doing a workshop with 5-10 people, I need to do that with a Teams meeting because I want people to be able to feed back to me. I want to be able to engage with them, and we'll have a two-way conversation. So Teams meetings are just like what we're doing with Zoom. They enable people to share their video, they enable people to feedback and talk, and it's basically a two-way conversation. What we can also do with Teams, though, is we can do a live event. So a live event is designed for a one-way interaction mostly. So within Teams, I'll just show you here. We can go into new meeting and we can choose live event. And what we can do in here, we can say we can do a webinar on Teams training. So if we got 200 people joining an event, we wouldn't want 200 people with the ability to talk, share their video. We talked a lot about Zoom and the inappropriate videos that have been appearing. We want to cut that out. There's no need for them to be showing their video, and there's no need for them to be talking. So a live event, basically, they can be run inside an organization. So if you're a really large organization, you might run events internally to do announcements. But we can do a public one. And with a public one, we can do a recording. So that means at the end of the event, there'll be a recording that people can download. We can do captions, which is really good. So you can pick different languages. So if you wanted to translate your event into Russian or Romanian or other languages as you're doing it, then the captions can appear in their language at the bottom. And you can even do things like Klingon in here. We can get an engagement report. So the engagement report tells us how long people were on. If people joined for 5 minutes and then all turned off, they weren't engaged, it wasn't a very good event. And we can do a Q&A. So the Q&A allows people to ask questions through a web interface, which you can then select whether you want to answer. So this really gives us a lot of control when we're running a large event, like a training with 100 people, or an event where we don't want people to be interacting, because we can do this and we can still get people to Q&A and do it that way. So a lot of our events are using live events, which are good. The live events, just to show you, is slightly different interface to Teams as well. It's designed to be run as an event. So within this section here on the left-hand side, you have the ability to bring what you might want to present up next. So if you've got a presentation running, but you might want to flick yourself to video, so you can do the video and you can kind of orchestrate what's showing up the screen at different times. So this is a really, really good way of basically doing a really professional event and bringing a video up, then flicking to a presentation and having lots of different speakers show up. And these can support like 10,000 people. So there's get a huge amount of people on there. And one of the things on here is an event coordinator. So within Teams, you can have a producer and a presenter. So a producer can be orchestrating in the background who's going to be up next. So instead of me having to worry about, I need to flick now to a presentation or I need to flick to someone else's video, within a Teams live event, we find that if you have an event coordinator, they can be doing the flicking between the presentation and the speakers, and it takes a lot of the worry and the hassle of trying to do that away from you. The last piece is just the realities of running an event. When you run an event, generally, we see around, at the moment, we're seeing about 75% of people showing up to the event, which is really, really good. I think that might be a lot to do with the current environment. But when we've been running typical webinars, we'll usually see about a 50% drop off of people. So I wouldn't be offended or upset if you do run an event and you have 100 people sign up. I would expect about 50 people to actually attend that event then. And if we're running a face-to-face event, that drops off even more as well. So I think the reality is, if you've got a huge amount of sign-ups, don't be disappointed if 50% show up. It's still really good that you've got those people coming in. And the key is, if you've managed to get 100 people to sign up and you've used Eventbrite to collect their email address, even if they don't attend the event, you can post that video to them afterwards. So it's going to be on YouTube, you can email them. So it doesn't matter if they don't attend the live event, you're going to be able to market to them afterwards as well. The next piece is just a call to action. So whenever we do an event, we need some way afterwards of driving them to think about, right, we've done this event, what can I do next? So our call to actions, really, this is an example where we're basically just outlining kind of the services that we offer. So if we've done a Teams session, here's kind of the services that we offer and here's where we can help. So we are doing a small sell at the end just to say, if this is something that you are interested in or you want further help, then get in touch, and here's kind of how you would do that. And also a call to action if you're running other events. So we've kind of got lots of events that we're running. Another call to action could be, here's some more events, come and join these events. So it's kind of not just the sell, but trying to keep building up this group of people who's hopefully watching your events then. An event follow-up. So kind of this is the key, because like I said, not everyone's going to join your event. So we're just some simple steps that we would follow once we've done an event is upload the video to YouTube. Get the tagging right, because I've seen hundreds of companies that don't tag their stuff in YouTube, and the tags are really important. If you just upload them to YouTube and don't think about the description or the tagging, there's loads of stuff that you really need to think about that help drive people to those videos afterwards. So there is tools like keywordtool.io where you can put a tag in to say, right, I'm doing my video on Microsoft Teams, and this tool will basically go back and say, here's the best tags to use alongside that. So it'll go and look in YouTube and say, when people are using Microsoft Teams tags, these are the other popular tags that you should look to get the most views. And it's also things like descriptions on YouTube. There's lots of things that you should be doing. You should share it to Facebook. You should put a comment, get someone to comment on it. All of these things that if you do them, it drives the video up in the YouTube ranks. So you really need to look at doing those. We always create a blog and a marketing post. So when we do an event, at the back of that, we'll do a follow-up blog post. And the blog post will be driven around SEO. So it'll have 300 words. It'll be targeted to what we're looking to do. So that basically means that when people are looking for Microsoft 365 and Teams, this is going to show up in their search engine, and the video's up there at the top as well. So again, we're just always thinking about how do we drive people once we've done this event, when they're searching on Google, to come and find us. Once we've uploaded the video to YouTube and we've created a blog post, we email everyone to our webpage to say, here's the Eventbrite, using that Eventbrite thing I showed before. So that's driving people to our webpage where they'll hopefully see more events. We post it on LinkedIn, try and get some additional material around that. We'll use the engagement report. If someone asks loads of questions during the live event, we've got those questions, we've got the email address, so we're able to call that person up and just speak with them and say, do you need any other help? Can we do anything else? And that always helps. And we also then update our proposal and marketing materials. So if we're doing proposals now on Microsoft Teams, and we've just done an event on getting the most out of Microsoft Teams and building a virtual office, we want to include that on our proposal, because again, it increases the brand reputation when they're looking at buying our services. If they can go back and watch a video for an hour where we've done exactly what they're talking about, it's just going to help basically commit the decision on purchasing with us as opposed to somebody else. And that's kind of it, really. Over for any questions and answers that people might have.